Well, welcome. I'm your host, Robert Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom. Tonight's podcast is 7 ways why emotional allegiance to my comfort zone programming steals my dreams. Why my comfort zone allegiance steals my dreams, desired lifestyle, moneyed up outcomes as I rise under knowing my comfort zone allegiance has been the silent thief of my dreams. My desired lifestyle and every moneyed up outcome. I once thought I was out of reach. My comfort zone isn't comfort, it's a disguised cage built from inherited programming and our ancestral survival mode reflexes. And yesterday's emotional snapshots control my outside world today. Every time I choose familiar over expansive, I reenact old patterns that were never mine, because a lot of your patterns were inherited from the womb to 5 years old, and that was your parents, and it goes straight from the physical world into the subconscious, and you have no recollection of this going in, but your cognitive recollections of your snapshots control your life. Every time I choose safety over sovereignty, I shrink the lifestyle I'm meant to live. And every time I choose predictability over possibility, I block the moneyed up outcome already aligned with my frequencies. My comfort zone is a museum of my past, curated by parent programming, social obedience, and inherited limits. Staying loyal to keep me worshiping what was instead of rising into what's next or what's now. Something I've I've opened up to. It's never what's next, it's what's now. It steals my clarity and my creativity and my cash flow potential because it keeps me repeating emotional allegiances that no longer serve my becoming. That's what the comfort zone does, is it keeps you safe, but it never allows you to expand, because life is an adventurous aggravation to awaken us, to move us forward, but we try to stay the same. Why my allegiance to my comfort zone programming. Comfort zone allegiance keeps you loyal to outdated emotional programming that blocks your rise into sovereign success. When you obey the familiar, you unconsciously protect the very limits that stall your dreams. Comfort zone programming rewards safety, dissolves expansion, which means your desired lifestyle and moneyed up outcomes never will get the energetic runway they require to light your fire of foresight, financial freedom, and everything. Comfort zone thinking suppresses the bold actions, maverick decisions, intuitive risks required for wealth and lifestyle elevation. Your dreams demand innovation, intuition, imagination, and inspiration, never repetition. And see, that's what the comfort zone is. It loves repetition. And I've really opened up to this in my own life, because I used to get mad when things, even on the computer, when they did some updates, I'd get mad because it didn't go the same. I shouldn't say mad, I'd get frustrated. And really what it was is my comfort zone being challenged for me to rise. Comfort zone allegiance keeps you looping predictable choices that generate predictable results. No bold moves, no bold outcomes. Comfort zone loyalty blocks your energetic liberation, the voltage that magnetizes opportunities, income, and elevated lifestyles. When you stay in the familiar, your energy stays flat. When your energy stays flat, your outcomes stay flat. Breaking comfort zone programming unleashes the liberated frequencies that attracts moneyed up opportunities, moneyed up accomplishments, and the lifestyle you envision. Why allegiance to self-help, personal growth, self-improvement, therapy, and punctuated writings keep me stuck in what other people think, know, and do, stealing my wisdom, insight, and clarity. Outsourcing my inner authority to self-help systems traps me and you in other people's frameworks instead of your own sovereign clarity. When you rely on external teachings, techniques, and therapeutic templates, you unconsciously trade your intuition for their instruction. You start thinking in their language, dissolving your language, your lingo, which keeps you stuck in what they believe and never opens up what you understand. Personal growth programming conditions you to chase improvement instead of embodying your innate wisdom. Self-improvement culture trains you to fix and optimize and upgrade yourself endlessly, which keeps you looping in not enough formats. It keeps that I'm never enough mindsets going within you. You always want to remember a mindset is an archive from what other people told you, and your intuition and your viewpoints, opinions, and beliefs. That loop of not enough steals your clarity because you're always measuring yourself against someone else's model of success. Punctuated writings and therapeutic scripts reinforce external validation, muting your original insight, lived geniusness, and it keeps you locked and blocked in somebody you never were. When you write, speak, or think in borrowed punctuation, borrowed tone, or borrowed therapeutic language, you dilute your sovereign signals. Your wisdom gets filtered through what other people think, know, and do, leaving you in a bunch of honeydews. Living your own clarity buried under their vocabulary. The words we speak have the audacity and authenticity to rise us out of yesterday. Why my allegiance to my thinking, knowing, indoctrinated education, and social obedience steals my sovereign way of life and fresh experiences. Indoctrinated thinking keeps you loyal to your inherited interpretations instead of your sovereign insight that lights your light of life to take flight. Feeling love, invigorate, galvanizing Hellraiser's tenacity to experience life your way. When you rely on what you were taught to think, know, and believe, you unconsciously filter life through outdated educational scripts. And all the self-help, personal growth, and self-improvement therapists, when they're telling you what they know, they're also telling you their limitations. And that's something I realized with self-help, personal growth, self-improvement. They tell you things, but they never show you things. You smell in the tell, you glow in the show of your own talents. Your ability to experience life directly rather than through someone else's curriculum opens up your celebrations of your own autonomous expansion, feeling the freedom flow through your veins of fame. Social obedience trains you to prioritize approval over authenticity. Stealing fresh experiences, fresh messes that open up your fresh experiences to open up your fresh foresight to light your light of life and sovereign expressions. Obedient culture rewards compliance, never curiosity. It teaches you to mirror what others expect instead of exploring what your inner compass unveils for you to experience. The loyalty to social correctness keeps you repeating familiar patterns instead of discovering new, fresh possibilities and sculpting fresh scenarios of your desired lifestyle. Thinking, knowing allegiance blocks energetic liberation. The frequency that opens the now experiences, now opportunity, and now ways of living are experienced from inside. They're the hearkening the intuition from within you. When you over-identify with your learned knowledge, you shut down the spontaneous, intuitive, high-frequency experiences that rise you out of yesterday. Are you open to rising out of yesterday to liberate today with your own talents? Because your talents will rise you further than anything. But following verbatim what other people do, it keeps you in the sheepleness of life. Sovereignty requires presence, never programming. And breaking allegiance to indoctrinated thinking unlocks your fresh, moneyed up lifestyle, elevating experiences waiting for you to rise and surf your seas of success. Why my allegiance to my thinking, knowing, indoctrinated education, social obedience is unrealized ancestral survival mode programming and third world enslaving mindsets. Indoctrinated thinking is inherited. Survival mode programming disguised as education keeps you loyal to outdated ancestral fear codes. And how do we live from the survival mode fear codes of our ancestors? I witness that in my life every day because I'm open and I'm wanting to, and I have the desire to dissolve it, release it, and let me play today in the here and now. What you call thinking and knowing is often cycled lineage logic. Survival strategies passed down from ancestors who lived in scarcity, danger, or suppression. Their way of their allegiance to their comfort zone is being played out here today. Staying loyal to those mental patterns that keeps you operating from protection instead of expansion, shrinking your sovereign way of life just stifles you in yesterday. Trying to think on how to get out of the way instead of rising above it and showing yourself the way. That's something you really may want to open up to as I show myself the way to my promised land. Social obedience is a mask for the old world compliance mindsets that mute your clarity, creativity, and sovereign expression. Obedience culture trains you to prioritize harmony, approval, and conformity, the same emotional posture that kept earlier generations safe under restrictive conditions. The allegiance that keeps you reenacting third world survival reflexes instead of stepping into the high frequency autonomy of expansion and fresh experiences is above the third world survival mode reflexes. Thinking knowing allegiance locks you in inherited limits that blocks intuitive wisdom, fresh experiences, and sovereign expansion. When you over-identify with what you were taught, you unknowingly reinforce the very mindsets designed to keep people small. How is indoctrinated education designed to keep people small and always looking for something else and inside their way of thinking and doing? I see that every day. To keep people small, compliant, and controllable. Breaking that allegiance unleashes your energetic liberation. The frequency that opens fresh opportunities, fresh lifestyles, and fresh ways of living beyond the survival mode and the third world enslaving mindsets that we unknowingly encompass. And we do encompass a third world enslaving mindset from, well, if you look at things on Instagram and stuff like that, you can see it when you open up to recognize it. Why people's allegiance to ancestor survival mode programming and third world enslaving mindsets control the worldly terrain today. Ancestor survival mode programming keeps people operating from fear instead of sovereignty, shaping global behavior and patterns in yesterday. Most people still run on inherited survival reflexes, scarcity, caution, obedience, and emotional self-silencing. These reflexes were essential for ancestors navigating danger. Yet today they limit clarity, creativity, and autonomy. When masses operate from fear-based programming, the worldly terrain reflects on their fear-based choices. I know my life does. When I admit it and get right down to the brass tacks and admit it, I can see a lot of that happening today. But by admitting it, I liberate me. Third world enslaving mindsets normalize obedience, compliance, and emotional suppression, influencing modern social structures and social obediences today. These mindsets reward staying small, agreeable, and predictable, the exact traits that keep earlier generations safe under oppressive conditions. When people unconsciously obey these inherited limits, institution, cultures, and systems continue to mirror those same restrictive patterns today. Loyalty to inherited limits blocks intuitive wisdom and intuition and sovereign choice, crafting sovereign choices, allowing outdated mindsets to shape today's terrain. When people trust old programming more than than their current insight, they recreate the past instead of innovating frequencies of the future here and now. This allegiance keeps the global landscape running on yesterday's fears rather than unleashing today's scenarios of your desired life. Breaking that loyalty unleashes the liberated frequencies required to shape the world into peace, flowing peace and prosperity. Why people's allegiance to ancestor survival mode programming and third world enslaving mindsets control the business mindsets and business methods today. Survival mode programming keeps businesses operating from fear, scarcity, and risk avoidance instead of innovation and sovereign strategies. Most business cultures still mirror ancestral survival mode reflexes, protect resources, and avoid danger, stay predictable. These mindsets shapes today's business terrain by rewarding caution over creativity and compliance over clarity. Third world enslaving mindsets normalize hierarchy, obedience, and emotional suppression inside companies. And if you look at a company and you're working there, you can see they want to the emotional suppression and stuff like that. These inherited patterns create business methods built on control, approval, and seeking top-down authority. When leaders and teams unconsciously obey these old codes, business replicate outdated systems instead of evolving of high-frequency, autonomous, creative environments. And you can witness that today. If you're looking and listen to what's going on, how people want to control other people in a certain way. And I said this on one other podcast and they got taken away, but you have to watch what people are saying and you'll see a lot of this today. Loyalty to inherited limits blocks intuitive intelligence and fresh business methods. keeping companies stuck in yesterday's models. Loyalty to inherited limits blocks intuitive wisdom and sovereign crafted choices. Allowing old mindsets to shape today's global terrain, you open up in pain. Because that's what we do. Because if you look at the world, it really doesn't change out of where it was yesterday until you enlighten yourself internally. When people trust ancestral programming more than their fresh insight, they recreate the past instead of innovating the here and now with frequencies flowing to their future. This allegiance keeps the world running on recycled fear-based logic rather than high-frequency clarity, creativity, and sovereign expansion. Why comfort zone programming unknowingly controls my manifesting prowess. Comfort zone programming keeps your frequencies locked in yesterday's limit and shuts down your innovative wit inside your subconscious landscape. Blocks the energetic range required for manifestation. Your comfort zone is a frequency fence. It keeps you vibrating at the same emotional bandwidth your ancestors used for survival. Manifestation requires expansion, never repetition. When your energy stays loyal to familiar patterns, your desires can never find a landing strip for your desired lifestyles, dreams, and all that. Comfort zone allegiance prioritizes safety over sovereignty, shrinking your ability to call in bigger outcomes. Manifesting is never about wanting, it's about allowing and rising of frequencies that mirror your outcomes. As comfort zone programming trains you to avoid risk, avoid possibility, and avoid disruption, the survival mode reflex shuts down your receiving channels and keeps your manifestations capped at safe, never sovereign. Comfort zone thinking recycles old emotional snapshots, making you manifest from memory instead of embodying the possibilities and the scenarios of your desired life. When you manifest from the past, you recreate the past. Comfort zone programming loops you in inherited emotional allegiances. The same patterns, the same choices, you'll have the same outcomes. Manifesting requires fresh frequencies, never familiar fear. While innermost allegiance to my past keeps me attached to the comfort zone, to my comfort zone ancestral programming. Inner allegiance to your past recycles emotional snapshots that lock you into familiar inherited survival patterns. Your past holds a library of emotional imprints, soul tattoos, parent programming, heart effigies, and ancestor coded reflexes. When you stay loyal to those snapshots, your nervous system defaults to what it already knows, never what you're becoming. The allegiance keeps you looping in comfort zone safety. Instead of rising onto your sovereign expansion of the universe. Past allegiance activates ancestor survival mode programming, making safety feel right and expansion feel dangerous. Your lineages survive by choosing caution, predictability, and emotional containment. When you unconsciously honor those codes, your comfort zone becomes a shrine to ancestral fear. The survival mode loyalty blocks innovation, intuition, and the high frequency choices required for your fresh, financially blessed lifestyle. Staying loyal to your past keeps you manifesting from memory instead of the scenarios of the here and now, trapping you in yesterday's frequencies. Manifestation requires fresh energy, Yet allegiance to your past forces you to create from old emotional allegiances, old identity, and old limits. Comfort zone programming thrives on repetition. Liberation thrives on disruption. Breaking the inner allegiance frees your frequencies of easy to rise onto of fresh outcomes, fresh experiences, and fresh novelties. Why dissolving all my emotional allegiances, emotional snapshots, and soul tattoos to my past liberates me to face and embrace my now with gusto. Releasing the emotional allegiances dissolves the invisible loyalties that keep your energy trapped in yesterday's terrain. Emotional allegiances are silent contracts with your past, inherited reaction, old identities, and outdated emotional roles. When you dissolve them, your energy stops orbiting old stories and becomes fully available for now. That allows you to feel embodied liberation, the sovereign presence, and the gusto to meet your current life without dragging yesterday's emotional weight. Clearing emotional snapshots and soul tattoos frees you from the emotional photography that keeps your identity and emotional identity. Emotional snapshots and soul tattoos are the imprints that freeze past memories into permanent meaning. They distort your now by making you respond to today with yesterday's reflexes. Dissolving them restores your original signal, letting you face your present moment with clarity, courage, and high frequency gusto. Dissolving the emotional coding breaks comfort zone programming, allowing you to rise of your now with sovereign expansion. Your comfort zone is built from emotional memory, never novelty. When you dissolve the emotional coding that shaped your life, the allegiances, snapshots, tattoos, and effigies stop reenacting the inherited limits that you experience today. That liberation empowers you to embrace your now with boldness, creativity, and autonomous expansion. So today I dissolve all allegiances. I rise out of yesterday's patterns. I claim my sovereign signal. I choose and unleash energetic liberation over inherited limitations. I choose liberating lingo over punctuated obedience. I choose autonomous expansion over comfort zone contractions. My dreams expand when I expand my grandeur. My lifestyle elevates when I elevate my innate talents to chauffeur me through life. My moneyed outcomes flow when I stop playing small. And this is my nowography, the declaration when my comfort zone stops, no longer gets a vote in my future. I rise, liberate, and I live sovereign. And everything I desire rises to meet me in a bold, bright way. As you rise out of comfort zone allegiance, emotional snapshots, heart effigies, soul tattoos, you lose the past, the unsavory past, to expand through life today with ease.